Pollution all of my water, pollution all of my air. People about that dollar, seem like don't nobody care. We sing the barnyard blues, hope somebody gon' hear. We use the land till it ain't no more. Hope the weather's kosher this year. The soil so contaminated with metals. Toxic waste flows down the stream, can't boil it out with no kettle. When the water's bad, everything else goes bad too. Bad diet equals bad health, bad circumstances for me and you. But I'm hoping that somebody gon' hear me. I hear the air say clear me. Hear mother ape say come near me. Don't be so mean to the place we call our home. That conservation and restoration, that's the vibe we own. If what we eat is what we waste, tell me how that sounds, tell me how that tastes. It's all connected like the internet. Please think about where you dispensing that. Does it break down organically? See, the earth operates mechanically for the sake of our health and sanity. Healthy earth equals better humanity. Pollution all of my water, pollution all of my air. People about that dollar, seem like nobody care. We sing them barnyard blues, hope somebody gon' hear. We use the land till it ain't no more. Hope the weather's kosher this year. Pollution all of my water, pollution all of my air. People about that dollar, seem like don't nobody care. We sing them barnyard blues, hope somebody gon' hear. We use the land till it ain't no more. Hope the weather's kosher this year.
B1AG family, welcome back again. We have this daily bread for you. Now, that song that was playing in the beginning is called Barnyard Blues by Farmer Brown MC. And it's talking about pollution all of my water, pollution all of my air. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because it's like a worldwide issue that we're having right now. Now, as much needed as agriculture is for our existence, because we got to have food. Agriculture also represents one of the biggest sources of water pollution in the country. Industrial agriculture operations, these big, like corporate farms, they tend to release large amounts of water and waste from crop production and livestock, causing both water shortages and harmful pollution in nearby areas. Now, over the weekend, Easter weekend, there's a big problem in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now, they just coming off this big Super Bowl win. Everybody's all happy. But the Floridians, Floridians were actually evacuated from their homes on Easter weekends under the threat of 480 million gallons of toxic wastewater that could end up in Tampa Bay, and with the potential of it being an environmental catastrophe. So what we're going to talk about today is the United States relationship with its waterways. Now, it is, and please believe me that when I say it is a relationship, B1AG, the U.S. relationship with its waterways is more toxic than Derrick Jaxn. Farmer Brown, what do you got to say about our waterways and our relationship with our waterways?
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1AG family. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Let's get to the numbers of it. And so right now in the United States, when we talk about this toxic relationship with the waterways, and so the Ohio River, and this touches Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, discharges 32 million pounds of toxic discharges. The Mississippi River, this touches Arkansas, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Tennessee, Wisconsin, 12 million pounds of toxic discharge. The New River, touching North Carolina and Virginia, 12 million pounds of toxic discharge. The Savannah River, this is down close to where you're at, Georgia and South Carolina, 9 million. The Delaware River, 6 million. Muskegon River in Ohio, 5 million. Missouri River, 4 million. The Sonka Ditch, 4 million. Tri-County Canal, and this is in New England, 3 million. And the Rock River, 3 million. And we're talking about toxic discharge. These are pounds of toxins that go into your waterways. On subject, but off, I was just looking at an article. They said the coronavirus is hit and it's going up like 600% in Michigan. And we think about all the issues that have been going on in Michigan over the last few years. You know, I think about Flint. I think about the lead in the water. We're very interconnected with this planet that we're on. And no matter how safe I am in my little bubble in what I'll call Central Kentucky, I'm indelibly tied to the rest of this community. When we're talking about B1AG and how this affects the Black producers. And so we know that the majority of our Black farmers are making their money off of livestock production. But on the flip side of this, we also realize that these confined animal feeding operations, classified as CAFOs, this is a big source of this toxicity that we're talking about when we're thinking about what's going on in Tampa Bay right now. And so what you have these large collections in these reservoirs, as you would, of phosphorus and nitrogen. This is a direct result of fertilizer and manure. And so these cows, you know, they're eating, you know, the producer wants to fatten them up, get them good and ready for slaughter to make the burgers that we eat. But as a side effect of that, they poop. That poop goes into the water. It doesn't just sit on the ground. It is runoff. And so this affects your fish. It affects the overall health of your water system. So once again, these are some conversations we need to have. It's very ironic. We were having a discussion the other day about the sister from up in New York that had invested in her own water well, and she actually created a business from that. And so we get into this conversation today. I really want to really break down how tied we are to our waterways, being that our bodies are 75 to 80% water.
Yes. Now we did recently do a story about Paula McCarthy. Paula McCarthy is a sister, a young Black single mother who not only owns her own bottling company, she owns all the land that contains the water source that sources her bottling company. So she not only owns a bottling company, she also owns a water source. Her name is Paula McCarthy. And that's a picture of her right there. So we'd like to give her a big ups because she actually went out and owns a water source, you know, and that's very important as we're talking about today because we're talking about the pollution of the water. Now down in Florida, Bradenton, Florida, the big issue is they have an old fertilizer plant. It's they don't use it anymore. But what happened is they have a retention pond, and this retention pond is full of phosphorus and nitrogen, but also uranium, and it gives off radon. So now we're talking about like nuclear uranium and radium. You know, we're talking about like nuclear chemicals that are being made from this phosphorus in this water. Well, this retention pond has leaks in it, and it's there's a very big possibility that it may give way. And officials in Manatee County, they actually evacuated people over the Easter weekend because they were fearing that up to 340 million gallons of contaminated water could engulf the area in a 20-foot wall of water if they don't repair that breach at Piney Point Reservoir in the Tampa Bay area north of Bradenton, Florida. Could you imagine a 20-foot wall of toxic water engulfing your city? Well, that's what's going on in Florida right now. But there's also this same threat all over the United States and all over the world.
Think about it. You know, even if I'm just, you know, I'm going about my daily business, I'm just a consumer. I'm not really worried about the ecosystem, not really worried about, you know, my relationship with the environment. There's a lot of people in Tampa Bay that aren't able to get to their bag because they had to be evacuated. All of these issues will either directly or indirectly affect us in some way, somehow, whether we're talking about the air we breathe, the water that we're drinking, the water that we bathe in, or consumer the prices that we pay. We keep bringing up this concept of reparations. I think it would be absolutely the correct thing to do. But when you're dealing with budgets, because once again, we're in a nation of laws, your limited budgets. What I have to work with is what the taxpayers are inputting. So we realize this issue going on in Florida is one of many. And I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but I know there's more than 629 miles of toxic wastewater in what we call North America. What this means is, I know last week President Biden had presented, some possible ways to incorporate the socially disadvantaged in rebuilding the infrastructure. So a lot of times when we think of infrastructure, we're talking about streets and roads, but these reservoirs are just as much a part of our infrastructure. And so once again, just last year, suddenly we were hit with a pandemic that nobody could have planned for. And so when you're looking at a local, state, and federal level, okay, there's now monies that I may have originally wanted to go to socially disadvantaged people that I now have to fix my streets and roads. Okay, now I got to get protective wear. And so once again, all of these economic impacts are encroaching once. And what do they say? When white America catches a cold, black America catches a pneumonia. And going back to another conversation we were having about just the strange times we're in, the plagues. I don't know if you have that video from what's going on in Australia right now. Because some people might say, well, what does Australia have to do with, what we have going on in the U.S.? It's the same thing with the Suez Canal. Because of that blockage in the Suez Canal for about a week, it's going to affect prices that we pay for toilet paper, coffee here in the next few weeks. The same thing has happened in Australia. When you think about the history of Australia, these mice are, and I want y'all to see the picture, seeing is believing. And so just to kind of give a background of what's happening. And so there's a huge mice infestation going on in Australia right now. There's literally 20 million plus rodents running around plaguing Australia. They breed every 6 weeks. But the big component of this is they're affecting agriculture in Australia. They've gotten into the waterways, which we'll discuss that a little bit later. They're going into the grain silos. They've decimated the cotton crops. So once again, when we shouldn't look at nature as something that, that's separate from myself. We're a part of nature. And as we get into this discussion, we'll talk about the opportunities. For those of us that like to be optimists about a situation, but to correctly address the situation, you have to know the gravity of the problem. But if you could roll that not so beautiful bean footage real quick.
Now, before I do play this footage, I would like to put up our copyright disclaimer. Y'all check this out, because this is crazy. I know, I don't know how y'all feel about mice or rodents, but this is something I would never, ever want to face.
Damn.
That was horrible.
Not to get in the good book, but the Bible speaks of plagues. And I will say, some of these are seasonal. I know here in the West right now, we're going to have cicadas. Sometimes there's locust. And so there are different components of the environment that come in seasons. Some might be every 2 years. Some might come every season. But this video was particularly important. And I hope some of the farmers out there that are looking understand these will indelibly impact your operation. And so I imagine as a consumer, I wouldn't want to know that my cream of wheat had been infested with mice feces. In Australia, their water system has been contaminated with mice feces. When you study history, when you think about the source of the bubonic plague, it was rats, but these are vermin. These are what we call vermin. Mice lives matter, right? But let's be honest. How would you feel if you knew that your grain that you were eating, whether you're talking about your cornmeal, whether you're talking about your wheat, whether you're talking about anything that's being produced on the farm, was being overridden by mice? These mice didn't come out of nowhere. They came as a result of other issues going on in Australia. If we think over the last few years, there were a lot of forest fires. According to some schools of thought, these fires were intentionally set. When we think about what's going on in South America, this is a source of the coca and other products that people produce. Because what we realize, okay, we're destroying the farmland that we have, and this goes back to these confined animal feeding operations. Once you've contaminated your land, you're not rotating your crops, you're going to have to give that land a certain amount of years, sometimes decades, to fix itself. The beautiful thing about Mother Earth is long before humans were here and long after we'll be here, Earth will always replenish itself. But how many lifetimes will it take for this replenishment to happen? And so meanwhile, when we're talking about economics, because here at B1AG, we like to be very specific about the conversations we're having, not only pointing out the problems, but what are solutions. So saying that to say in Australia, okay, since we're making all the farmland we did have toxic, we have to burn new land. And so this is where you get into burning down your forest. This is where you have a lot of trees getting burned down so you can make better land. Technically speaking, burning land isn't a bad thing. It actually cleans the land. And so you can clean with water, you can clean with fire. And what does it say in the book? I'm not coming by water, but fire next time. That's a whole nother conversation. But what happens is these mice came as a result of what I would say well-intended, hey, we just want to make some clear land to grow our crops. But as an unintended result, we now have an infestation of something that we want to get rid of. Apply this to North America right now. And so in Australia right now, when you think about the Aborigines that got wiped out and all sorts of other problems, they're now going to the government saying, hey, we need to figure out a way to get rid of these mice. Can we use chemicals? Can the government fund us to use chemicals to get rid of the mice? And so in that sense, it's not bad. It's not good. You're trying to figure out, hey, we're losing crops by the minute because of this infestation. And so the government, the central governing body, is now left with a decision. Okay, do we allow you to use chemicals to get rid of these mice? Okay, you might get rid of these mice, but what is going to be the other unintended consequences of the chemicals that you would have to use to get rid of 20 million, 40 million mice? Like you saw in the video, a pair of mice alone can create 500 other mice. And so we really have to have these conversations applies to farmers in America. When I think about new farmers, I've had at least 3 people in the last week reach out to me interested in buying farmland, purchasing farmland. Farmland isn't just, hey, let me just get a place that has grass. You want land that's arable. If somebody tricked you and you bought land that's toxic, they've oversprayed it with chemicals, fertilizers, and pesticides, it's going to take you longer to make a profit because you're now having to do mitigation. You have to get your soil back right. You might have to spend a lot more money on other chemicals to clean it up. And so there are unscrupulous people that will sell you horrible land. And so we have to take all of these things under consideration because you and I both we're excited agriculturalists, right? We're excited about the opportunities, but we also have to know the environmental, sometimes intended or unintended consequences for how we've been doing farming. And I will say the opportunity is that, within the B1 family that we have right now is how can we avoid these situations 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Well, we can say, and I'm going to go over a list of a few of these companies. You put up the copyright disclaimer. Many people like their hamburgers. They like their chicken, right? And so we know some of the biggest companies that produce these will be your Cargill, your Tyson Fresh. And so between Tyson, Cargill, who else? McCain Foods, this literally contributes millions of pounds of toxic waste into our waterways. And so as an individual consumer, I have to ask, okay, is my relatively cheap chicken sandwich, is my relatively cheap hamburger worth, multiply me times 100,000 per day, other people that want to eat this same product. Now, is my satiation from just eating this burger that might take me a minute to eat, what is the implication on the broader ecosystem? Because once again, industry only operates based on demand. And so as an individual, here at B1AG, we're not here to tell anybody what to prioritize, what to eat, but we are here to say that we have an indelible connection with all of these things that we see going on around the world right now. The opportunity, I'm going back to the opportunity, is we can really reframe and reshape what our relationship with not only the land, but our relationship with the food system is. We understand that our ancestors, indigenous Aboriginal ancestors, worked this land for millions of years, depending on whose timeline you're going by, but I say millions of years. And we didn't have these issues because it was a relationship. Profit's good. I like the thought of doing good business and making profit. But what happens when profit starts to destroy that which you're getting the resources to make profit from? And so this is where we get our children, not just children. I was a non-traditional student. I was in my late 20s before I even understood anything about agriculture. But these are the opportunities for us to really focus around codified approaches. When we go back to this Michigan dynamic, I can't help but to think about Flint, Michigan. Let my people go. These things will keep happening. And it seems to me, from my modest observation, Pharaoh's heart has been hardened. And so now the Israelites have a choice. The Hebrews have a choice. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to wait till Pharaoh just destroys everything? Or are we going to take the initiative amongst ourselves to do something about it? And this war is not fought with guns. It's not fought with picket signs. It's fought with using our minds. We come from an ancestry that knew how to work the land. We knew how to rotate crops. Fasting. Guess what? When you have multiple people that fast, when I say multiple, I mean millions of people that fast, like literally making this a part of our lifestyle, this cuts down on this demand that is destroying the land. I mean, this is very practical. But once again, you and I can talk about this on this screen right now, but how do we have this broader conversation? And this is what B1AG is about. How do we come up with some solutions? Because this is absolutely going to affect us. And not only us, it's going to affect our children. It's going to affect our grandchildren. Earth will always replenish itself, and there was never a promise that humans would always be here.
That's why it was such a important and big thing that Paula McCarthy, she owns a water source and a bottling company. Because as this continues to happen, because this is continuing, this is an ongoing problem for America and also worldwide, with poisoning our waterways. It's very important that we have our own sources of water. And this sister, Paula McCarthy, she took the initiative to not only own a bottling company, but to own the water source as well. And that's one practical solution that she found to make sure that we have clean drinking water and a clean water source, for the B1 family. Now, I'm now everybody just can't go out and buy a water source. That may not be practical for everyone, but for those it is practical for. This is a solution to fight the ongoing poisoning of our waterways. You might not be able to buy a lake or a river, but you might be able to buy a well. You know what I'm saying? Or you might be able to get a couple of people together to invest in a well. Something is just as digging a well to make sure that you and yours have a clean source of water.
Bro, let's break down numbers. And so we know 80% of the black farmers are in what we call the Southeast. Just in North Carolina alone generates 10 billion gallons of animal waste per year.
That's a lot.
Not 10 million, 10 billion gallons of animal waste per year. Livestock and poultry on these CAFOs that I mentioned, these are the concentrated animal feeding operations, generated 369 million tons of waste. This is in 2012.
That's a lot of boo-boo.
9 million tons of waste. And so once again, we know every year the population increases. And so as the population increases, you have to produce more food. There was a time where people didn't eat 3 meals a day, but because of marketing, because we got used to the concept, I want breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between, this drove demand. This demand drove industry. And this isn't just in North Carolina. There's some parts of Louisiana, they call it Cancer Alley. Because when we think about the land that Bill Gates bought, a lot of this was in Louisiana because so my family's from down there. This is beautiful land. This is great arable farmland. But what has happened is our drive to, feed our consumer demands it's literally destroyed the land. And land doesn't replenish itself, overnight. You can't just be like, hey, government, we need to fix this overnight, because there's a thing called a super fund. And I'm not going to get deep into a super fund, but the government knows that this is a problem. But at the same time, these operations are legal. Because once again, what was the wealth of America built on? It was built on agriculture. And so, as the B1AG family, whether you're coming at this as a patriot, as a citizen, or a citizen of a nation, or a citizen of the globe, what are we going to do about this? Because this is absolutely affecting us. When we think about the virus and the pre-existing conditions, you can't convince me that these pre-existing conditions that we have within our community aren't directly tied to how our food is being produced. You got to know, when we think about the bodegas, the stores that we're getting our food from, the green meats at the store in the hood, we're going to get the worst of everything if it's left to somebody else to create our food system. And where I'm at, man, it's over the last few days. I don't know if I'm thinking about it too much. I try to think positively about things, but I've just been seeing this sickness on people. I've been seeing this physical sickness on people. And you can't not assume that the food system has a lot to do with it. I think it was very ironic, the timing of the Suez Canal. I think it was very ironic what happened in Tampa Bay, being that this is where the Super Bowl was. I think humanity, there's a certain arrogance, and I'm not here as some guru or no, I'm somebody that likes to eat. I want my children to eat. I want my family to be healthy. And I'm realizing how directly tied we are to the outcomes that we get when it comes to the way we're interacting with the land. I can't give enough props to this sister that had the wherewithal to understand to invest in something as simple as water. Because see, when we think about agriculture, a lot of people I work with, we think about the legacy of it. We think about I'm going to protect my family land. And a lot of times we don't think of it as an industry. When we're thinking about industry, okay, Ford is successful because somebody's somebody's getting metal from somewhere. Somebody's getting the material to make the airbags, the seats from somewhere. Somebody had to get the oil out of the ground. And so if we can see our community and our food system, something as simple as our food system, as this group effort, it's a group effort. Everybody doesn't have to be a green thumb. Everybody doesn't have to be a scientist. Everybody doesn't have to be a mechanic. Everybody doesn't have to be a financial person. But when we're able to integrate the different skill sets, when we're able to integrate different people's area of interest, this is how you now create a more sustainable food system. And I guarantee whoever hates you or love you, if you can come up with a better idea than what we have now, there's a lot of bags in that. These are the jobs of the future, y'all.
Now, there were two things that you talked about, Farmer Brown, that I just want to reiterate to our B1AG family. Excess consumer demand. Hey, y'all, we want too much. We gotten kind of spoiled, and we consume a lot. We actually consume too much. Um, but uh, with this excess consumer demand, it's forcing us to become more sustainable and efficient in our use of natural resources. That is, if we want to maintain this way of life and use less resources, because we have the technology, to use to get the same amount of pleasure or utility out of what we consume and consume less of it. Now, if y'all are not familiar with the word sustainability, it's the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level, avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. Okay, right now, our excess demand on natural resources is not a balance, and it's not an ecological balance. And as you see, when there's not an ecological balance, it creates an imbalance. That's why you have all those rats or mice running around in Australia. We have excess of uh, algae in our waterways, which depletes the oxygen in the water, which kills the fish, which also makes that water undrinkable. These phosphorus plants, abandoned phosphorus plants, and agricultural runoff, again, poisoning our waterways. They're making the water unusable. So these are ecological problems that the B1 family, we need our brightest minds to step in and step up to solve some of these problems. Got enough rappers, we got enough football players, we got enough basketball players. If that's your way out, cool. But we all as a whole need to be aware of our place in this ecology called society.
Power respects power. What do we say? Money is power. It's my contention that we are the money. Before there was such thing as a dollar bill, we were the money. We got this economy going, and I'm glad you brought that definition of sustainability up. Who has been the group of people on this planet, regardless of what you want to call us, who have had to work with the least amount? We are poised by nature. Nature has ordained us to take the wheel of this machine that's going off a track. And that's on us. Nobody is going to grant us permission to take the wheel. And so this starts with the individual. It starts with, once I turn this podcast off, guess what Farmer Brown got to do? Farmer Brown got to figure out now what little simple thing can I do? Because, I'm a transformer and I connect with like-minded folks to create Voltron to address this issue. And so what are the individual things we can do within our households? What are the conversations we're having? I know my children like to eat, and let me not get it twisted. I like the thought of having things. I like the thought of having a prosperous life. I like the thought of infinite possibilities of what I can earn and attain during the course of my life. But when I think of the long-term plan, and this goes into farm planning too, a lot of metaphors on here. When I think of the long term, okay, do I want to just usurp all the resources that are available now? And then my children who I want to pass a business down to, there's nothing for them to work with, and that will be counterproductive. It's putting our minds on taking control of the environment. If we can do it on a micro level, just within the B1AG community, it is indelibly going to affect everybody else's community. Because once again, the people at the wheel right now are driving drunk with power that doesn't exist anymore. Drunk with power that doesn't exist anymore. What does it say in the Bible? In most spiritual texts that people go, the bottom will be on top. This isn't because something came down from the sky and said, okay, I'm going to officially turn earth upside down, and the people at the bottom are going to be on top. This is genetic, y'all. The people who have had to work with the least by nature have their minds work differently. Because I haven't been able to go to a bank and get the same capital as say whoever else has been driving. And so our minds have had to figure out, okay, I still want to eat like they do. And since I don't have all of these resources to work with, we come up with other ways. And this is the mother of innovation. The sooner we get our children, the sooner we get our brilliant minds to focus on these very practical solutions that are affecting all of us. We can either sit around, I think about the cow when I used to work on the research farm. And, in my head, I'm like, Cal, man, if you only knew what's about to happen to you when you walk through this chute. A lot of us are the cows sitting, walking around, just kind of following blindly into this chute that's ultimately going to lead to the slaughterhouse. There's a grand liquidation going on right now, whether you want to say physically, economically, spiritually, whatever level. And we all have a choice right now. What role am I as an individual going to play? Individual, family, community, state, region, nation, world. There's levels to this thing, y'all, and we are poised to take the wheel. And that starts with our will.
That's word right there. We have to have the will and the mindset to live sustainably, live more efficiently. There's there's a simple things we can do. Use LED light bulbs. There are certain water shower heads that you can buy that you get the same pressure using less water. There's very simple, practical things we can do. Buy water by the gallon. If you're going to buy your water, you need clean drinking water, buy it by the gallon. Consider using water purifiers so you don't have to buy as much plastic. You can just clean your water. But we have to get in a different mind frame when it comes to how we consume these natural resources. Now, I really love what you were talking about, Farmer Brown, about the bottom being on top, because the impoverished, those that have less, you get creative because because to survive, again, this is all boiling down to survival skills. To survive, there's certain creature comforts that you want, but if you don't have money, that doesn't mean you cannot have these creature comforts. I've seen homeless people, especially our veterans, our military veterans that come back and now they're homeless. They're creating Wi-Fi spots. They're not stealing Wi-Fi. They're creating Wi-Fi spots. They have internet. You got people that are homeless with internet, what I'm saying, for free. You have people that live in the streets, on the streets, under bridges, makeshift homes with a lot of the common amenities that we have that we're paying, overpriced rent for. We got to live smarter, y'all. Farmer Brian, you got anything, last words to say about this toxic relationship with our waterways or just us living more sustainably?
You remember when we was living down in Decatur, one thing I learned, a lot of times we talk disparagingly about crackheads, that whole thing of what that meant. And that's actually one of the most innovative groups of people I've met. I remember one time we had a flat tire. We was at a recording studio and one popped up. Hey man, you need that fixed? We were in a rush. We're like, yeah. I'm talking about it was less than 3 minutes. There was a whole network. Somebody had a wheel, somebody had a jack. There was a network because they didn't have the amenities to just, when you don't have much, don't always look at that as being a bad thing. You got to think about it. If you're born on this planet and you never had to think about figuring out a problem because mom or dad had money for you, I've just been able to hit a couple of buttons and there was a butler or a waiter for me, or I've just been able to get laws passed to decimate my competition. That literal part of your brain isn't going to grow. It's going to calcify because I don't have to use it. Our pineal glands are being lit up right now, lit with that light, fire flame, because we've had no choice but to think. And so I can only speak for myself. I don't speak for anybody else but myself. Right now, I realize I have more power doing something for self than to ask somebody else to do something for this that we value. As above, so below, to the degree that we value our presence on this planet. Because those mice in Australia, they're not thinking politics. They want to eat and they want to reproduce. That is primal. That what did they say in the garden? Be fruitful and multiply. And that's what they're doing. So they're on a code. The degree that we get on a code and realize the power that we have at this moment, not only the power, but the responsibility. You know, what is it? To he who is given the most, you have the most that you're responsible for. You know, in no way, you know, I think every day, you know, every minute of my day, I'm immersed in the thought of what my ancestors dealt with, not only on this land, but across the planet. And the more I think about it, it gives me pride to understand we're the ones supposed to drive this wheel. All of these prophecies we've heard about all of these years, this is very practical. You know, hey, you've been retrofitted to create solutions that will affect the world for eternity, right? When we talk about the concept of the Most High, this is eternity, meaning there's no beginning, no end. And we're able to write into this whole script where we're going to be at. We're in our finest hour. Shout out to the sister, Vicky Dillard. We need to take care of Mother Earth. You know, I ain't trying to pull a Derrick Jaxn on Mother Earth, y'all.
Hey, y'all, Mother Earth, the Earth, this planet, this land, y'all need to grab her hand softly, kiss it, rub her shoulders, give her a back massage, feed her fresh fruits, clean waters. You know what I'm saying? Treat the earth just like you would treat your most beloved loved one. We need to have that kind of relationship. We don't need to be toxic like Derrick Jaxn, so to speak. You know, we're just using him as a metaphor uh, because of the recent, you know, Derrick Jaxn relationship guru, so to speak, you know, got caught cheating on his wife. Um, so that's a storyline that's reverberating through the B1 family right now. But we need to really examine our relationship with our waterways, our planet, and the way we use our natural resources. We need to be more loving with that. We need to be more intentful, and we just need to be more mindful and conscious because a lot of these resources, these natural resources that we speak of, are non-renewable, or they take a long time to renew, more time than we have as an individual on this planet. So, B1 family, I hope you appreciate this slice of daily bread about our relationship with our waterways. Uh, let's not be toxic, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We don't want Mother Earth to take us to paternity court. We don't want Mother Earth. You know what I'm saying? We don't need them kind of problems. We don't need to strike the ire in Mother Nature and Mother Earth because they are undefeated when it comes to us. You know, we can't, there's no beating Mother Earth and Mother Nature. Been here before us, be here after us. So might as well just go ahead and rub her feet and make her happy because she will sustain life for everyone as she has always has. So B1 family, I hope y'all have your seeds in the ground. And just as a reminder, starting tomorrow, starting tomorrow, we have Lowe's, all the Lowe's across the country. They're giving away gardening kits starting tomorrow, April 8th, 2021. They're giving out gardening kits for free for the kids at Lowe's. And that's going to be every Thursday for the rest of the month of April. Hey, this is a prime, perfect opportunity to get these kids growing, uh, learning this ancient knowledge, this survival skill, as well as getting these seeds in the ground. I look at growing something and getting these seeds in the ground and planting as giving scratching the earths of the dandruff. Giving her a scalp massage. You know what I'm saying? That's what planting is like in my mind. As it relates to Mother Earth. So I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Be prosperous, be safe, be blessed. Keep that growth state of mind. And as we always like to say here at B1AG, if you really, really want to know something, what do they have to do, Farmer Brown?
Learn how to grow something.
Yes, sir. Y'all take it easy. Get some sunlight today if it's out, and make sure that sun hits you on your face and smile. Peace out.